Another great session. Really appreciate the brilliant insights we just had there from Helen, Anna-Marie, and Lauren. Real great discussion on how women in AI is such an important topic. So we're going to be moving into our final keynote for today, a day of a lot of learning and a lot of impact. And to finish us off today, we've got a keynote on the topic of no code, tapping into a golden source. No code is a very exciting area that we discover a lot about and talk a lot about. So it's a real exciting topic for us to be looking at together. We're joined by Lauren Hawker again, who was on the panel before, to give you a flavor of the great ideas we're going to get. And we're also joined by Amin Hassan. So to give you a quick overview of who Amin is a solutions engineer at Squirro. He's based out of London in the UK, who loves most to work at the cross-section of technology, business, and finance, and seeing how they all integrate to deliver massive successful results. So Amin is inspired by those brave enough to stand on the shoulders of giants, which is a quote I love, and push the boundaries of technology in their workspace. So it's going to be a really exciting discussion looking at no code, and Lauren and Amin are perfectly suited to take this away. Lauren, Amin, over to you for the final keynote. Looking forward to it.
Welcome to the Squirro AI Week 2021 and to this keynote, No Code Tapping into a Golden Source. My name is Lauren Hawker-Zaffer and I lead the training and education engagements here at Squirro. I am honoured to be part of this exciting event and welcome your participation warmly. Joining me today in this session is a devoted member of our delivery team, the solutions engineer, Amin Hassan. Welcome, Amin, and thank you for taking the time today to share your thoughts on no code AI, and the multitude of their benefits. So in this keynote today, we'll focus on the experimentation and democratization possibilities that no-code applications present, as well as the golden function they play in enhancing innovation and decision-making. Before we start though, it would be great to find out a little bit more about you, Amin, and how you ended up here at Squirro with such a strong enthusiasm for tech.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Yeah, my name is Amin. I'm a solutions engineer here at Squirro, based in London. My responsibilities generally are to discover a customer's business challenges, present back to the customer a solution, and deliver a project through to completion. I've always had a natural curiosity about tech, and the increasingly technological world we live in hasn't been lost on me, presumably like anyone else watching this. So personally, I saw the need to skill up as an existential opportunity to become more technically literate. And the idea of working at Squirro, a named visionary of Gartner's Magic Quadrant in Insights Analytics, was something kind of like a lucid dream for me. It's an opportunity I had to grab with both hands, and I mean it when I say this, Lauren. This is the time of my life.
Excellent. I mean, that's really great to hear. If you were to pick one thing, what's the most enjoyable thing about working at Squirro?
I think for me, it's really being involved in the day-to-day, spinning 10 different plates, speaking to customers, working to deliver projects, working with the code, working to solve business challenges. I think it's that sort of startup environment that really does it for me. It keeps the heart ticking.
Okay. So let's move on to the key focus of our discussion today. So no code is a compact negation that was once considered an impossible endeavor by many. It's now fanatically becoming a favored chosen in many fields. And with the removal of traditional scripting, I would then question what can really be understood by this term no code in your own opinion? How should we all understand it?
Well, it's a good question. I think No-code is generally widely understood. No-code development platforms allow programmers and non-programmers to create application software through graphical user interfaces and configuration, and instead of traditional computer programming. Sir Isaac Newton can be taken literally here. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And it's no coincidence that we're referring to visuals here.
Okay, what in particular do you mean when you state we're referring to visuals?
Well, specifically, as I was saying, no code is really about creating and building application software through graphical user interfaces. So it is very much a visual environment.
Okay. And so in that sense, I mean, obviously you're in an environment where you're surrounded by, I would say, very technically capable, technically literate as well, people. Is that term being recognized in your own environment, or who in particular would you say is identifying or not identifying with the term no code?
I think our environment at Squirro is unique because we really do sit at the forefront of AI. And so no code is something that we embrace. But to be fair, such are the idiosyncrasies in people's behavior and understanding. The term no code can often be overlooked rather than embraced.
Okay, and
it's sometimes even seen as a threat.
Okay, interesting. And who do you say is feeling this particular threat, or who's regarding it as a threat?
Well, as I said, not so much here, but you can imagine in technocratic environments where rather than seeing no code as a platform to democratize processes across cross-functional teams, technocrats in particular would rather see the rigidity and drawbacks of not be able to carry out the intricacies, tinkering, and development of their day-to-day work. They'll happily bear the brunt of bugs and bug fixing for the freedom of their technical literacy that their technical literacy offers. And needless to say, we all fear the day that machines take our jobs.
Okay. I mean, I think I asked you this particular question because from an educational angle, and obviously I represent that sort of angle here, I feel that the education sector has communicated a shift in the necessity to recognise the importance that's provided by this type of technology, especially I'd say in a very digital era that we are in. And also, I feel a very vastly encouraged do-it-yourself culture. So do it yourself, try it out. You have the opportunity to try it out. And this does offer wealth and grounds of creative experimentation. And I think as well that the sector is certainly forefronting the experimentation opportunities that's offered by no code. And in my opinion, it certainly helps close these digital and technical literacy gaps and breakdowns of maybe previous prerequisites that you had to get into these fields. I mean, obviously, there was a lot of prerequisites aligned with the technical space. And I think with now the removal of, you don't have to be able to code, or you don't have to be able to script, however you want to categorize it or label it as, you're providing essentially the non-technical and the digitally curious. And I think it's this digitally curious with almost an oxygen to line the whole democratization of the whole field. I mean, you've probably got your own thoughts as well around the whole component of digitally literate, technical literate, what sort of role this plays in the adoption of no code or the opportunities to use it. Maybe you can share that with us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in this increasingly technological and digitized world, we are seeing a gap between people who are digitally literate and more technically literate, who understand the inner workings and machinations of these tech tools and are able to actually leverage them to carry out their work processes. In the case of no-code platforms, to use your phrase, they're able to provide that oxygen for these different business and technical roles to live and work together to multiply their productivity by an exponential order of magnitude.
Almost that bridge and the mindset and the skill set. Yeah.
I mean, just to add to, you mentioned the word bridge. I've actually prepared, I'm going to reel off some startling statistics
Okay, yeah.
to outline how companies are trying to do just that, bridge this gap. I've got here
interesting. Yeah, please share them with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a statistic from Gartner here saying 41% of businesses have active citizen development initiatives, and 20% of those who don't are either evaluating or planning to start citizen development initiatives. 40% of companies state AI technologies and expertise are too expensive. That comes from Deloitte. The US Bureau of Labor Statistics says the average data science salary is $101,000. So it's quite clear that the gap between the demand for these tools and the supply it needs bridging. And some of these statistics, I could go on, but I think some of these statistics tell you that there is a wide gap and it does need bridging.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I think that we've been focusing on the individual here. And like any component of technology that's involved in a field of experimentation that then leads to a transformation that's trying to promote change, there's more than just the individual that's involved in this transformation. I mean, it's multi-layered in the sense of it's not only individuals, but it's then organizations, it's governments. I mean, everyone's involved in the whole movement of trying to skill or not skill or not provide this opportunity. So I think it's maybe a good time to move on. And again, we've got a few other supporting quotes that you can certainly read on your own, all of us who are participating here today. But maybe we can move on to touch upon the opportunities of experimentation and democratization and place prominence on the difference that no-code technologies and adoptions of these it can make for organizations. And I'd say maybe especially as the adoption, as we're speaking about, of these technologies can make all the difference between the future failure or success of an organization. And also, which is important to myself as an educator, the future proof of their workforces. So some of the most pressing issues at the moment being addressed in EdTech and by a lot of EdTech startups really shadow this imperative need for organizations to support the development of a confident digital community. And this comes through avenues of experimentation. There's multiple blogs, research papers gone into and funding around the EdTech startup community to foster this. So maybe you can give us an insight from a business perspective, Amin, in what ways organizations are profiting when they're adopting this no-code technology, and maybe what they should be aware of as well in this adoption.
Yeah, absolutely, Lauren. I think that desire to foster a thriving, digitally literate and technically literate community and have them live and work in the same place is very much at the forefront of companies. I mean, right off the bat, we're talking about laymen and women and everyone in between who are able to produce prototypes that would otherwise take days to get off paper, which can now be presented in hours. And that paves the way for innovation. I mean, if you have a business user who can present their own innovation without the need to be technically proficient, you've just dramatically cut the cost of development. And I guess that facilitates the collaboration between IT, business, and customers. And needless to say, this makes companies more agile and therefore more profitable. The list goes on, but
And what about the
should,
other side of the coin?
yeah, so what about the other side? As you said, they may be, so no code solutions can be cost efficient, but with limited scope, often for building solutions. So like a Meccano or Lego set, these are elaborate sets with pre-designed modules to build solutions, but that do not break any innovation barriers in and of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So too often, no-code solutions can be overlooked by advanced users. If it doesn't work outside of its scope, there's no code to make it work. These are obvious drawbacks that we have to guard against when weighing up a cost-benefit analysis.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think following that train of thought, I'd always try to underline that the democratization of technology, in the sense that what no code is trying to do, I see it as an enabler. But I also highlight maybe a connotation around the word enabling, because it doesn't always lead to action, I don't find. I think that it's the position of the organization as well to really help create that value and to democratize the experience for their people as well. And this means, I would say, creating the opportunities for learning and knowledge sharing across the organization and allowing them to really practice it. And with this no code, there is a practical component of facilitating hands-on experiences, as we've mentioned, for citizen developers like myself. And namely also providing integrated learning experiences that allows people to really build their confidence with terms like in our own solution that we're going to find out hopefully a little bit later, about these terms and the intricacies of AI, of machine learning, that as a citizen developer you're not really familiar with. It's really amazing, like how you can build confidence with these sort of emerging technologies. And as you've said, with this familiarity, there's an almost immediate sort of flare that fires innovation, I feel.
So just to clarify, so would you suggest that no-code solutions go hand in hand with training and education? Is that what you're suggesting?
I would certainly say that it's a good place to start, especially if you're looking at educating in the field of emerging technologies, in specific in relation to AI, machine learning, and maybe, yeah, it's a good time to move on to no-code AI.
Okay.
So yeah, hot trend, no-code AI. I would say for the past decade, the compound noun, the linguist, artificial intelligence, it's been fallen in and out of the words of many. I mean, it dominates conversations and it's present on a sea of minute meetings, meeting minutes, not minute meetings. Despite its popularity, though, I do think that there's several hurdles that inhibit business adoption, some of them that you've raised, and they still seem to sort of line a lot of coastlines of the AI landscape. But I think that it really, here we've got no-code AI and it's presenting itself as a golden key. And that was the title of our panel discussion today. And the quest to really make an AI affordable, accessible, understandable, and also, I would say, rewarding. We've spoken about no-code, and I think that the majority of people are now familiar with it, having spoken about it today. What can we understand then by the term no-code AI? Does it relate, and in what ways does it relate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's about bringing no code and no code platforms into the AI space. So no code AI means using a no code development platform with visual, code-free, and often a drag and drop interface to deploy AI and machine learning models. No code AI enables non-technical users to quickly classify, analyze data, and easily build accurate models to make predictions. in AI and machine learning, often needing to go back and reiterate your model and then test and then deploy it can be highly exclusive to non-technical users. But with no-code AI platforms, that's widely democratizing the workflow.
So obviously with here at Squirro, we have our own no-code AI solution, the AI Studio. And you can develop your own machine learning models. And as you've mentioned, it is a really user-friendly interface. It's just 5 steps. Would you be able to give us a little bit of a walkthrough or overview of our own solution?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm particularly passionate about this solution. So Squirro's own no-code AI platform is called AI Studio. It lets business analysts, data scientists rapidly develop AI and machine learning models through a user-friendly and visual interface in 5 easy steps. It can be deployed in any use case, such as finance, supply chain management, marketing, and so on. The coding and technical requirements all fall away, leaving the end user to do what they do best, which is work with the data. So I will now, I'll show you a quick demo.
Can I ask you one question before we go to the demo? So
Sure.
You've obviously used it multiple times.
Yes.
When you used it for the first time, let's take it from the perspective of a brand new user, new to no-code AI. What were you pleasantly surprised about?
I mean, it's a really good question, and thanks for taking me back to my first time. I mean, one thing that really stuck out to me the very first time using Squirro's AI Studio was how visually friendly it was to literally just click through the processes, and then within up to hours, I was deploying my own machine learning model without any deep dive into algorithms or vectorizations. I was just working with my data and just clicking through, iterating back, and then refining my model. And just that process, I think that's what it really excelled in, and what really piqued my interest the very first time I used it was how seamless the user experience was. But that's enough out of me. I'm a huge proponent of our own Squirro's AI Studio. So
yeah, please,
yeah.
Let's go to the demo then and have a little bit of a look at.
Right, welcome to this short AI Studio demo. Today in AI we have a number of challenges that we've talked about already, mainly that we don't have enough labeled data, it's difficult to build models ourselves, and it's challenging to deploy them. This is where AI Studio comes in. In 5 simple steps, we're going to build and deploy our own model. Here we have a bit of data around business and financial news. So let's figure out what this data set is talking about and see if we can, say, build a model around detecting potential management changes. So let's kick things off with the AI Studio. As you can see, here are the aforementioned 5 steps. We can start by the first step, which is to create a candidate set, which is a subset of our data that focuses on the documents we wish to label. We can create a candidate set by scoping our data with select queries that we think could provide a relevant subset of data to label. So let me query for, say, new chief executive within a proximity of 2 words and see what we get back. So the data we get back seems to be relevant. We can save our candidate set. Let's call it new chief executive. And then we go on to the next step. You can also notice here I've created a few other candidate sets, as I can combine these through various iterations of my labeling and modeling in order to iterate through my model at a later stage. So let's just go ahead with the one I've created and create a ground truth. We are now in the second step. Here, AI Studio supports various means to label data, both on a sentence level and a document level. So let me model to detect new chief executive. Model to detect management change. AI Studio supports various means to label data, both on a sentence and document level. So let's start first by giving our model a description. Let's say it's a model to detect management change. Let's choose sentence level tagging, standard sentence splitting, and let's name our labels new CEO and not new CEO. We now have our labels and we're ready to start labeling. We're then taken to the ground truth view. Here we can go through each item in the list view and label each of our data by going through each item. Here I can see a sentence that's indicating the appointment of a new CEO, so I will label it as such. And we can go through each item and do the same. Otherwise, if it's not indicating the appointment of a new CEO, we can label it as not new CEO. Ground Truth View also offers us this focus view where we can clearly see sentences in front of us, and this might make it easier to label our data. We also have the labeling overview, which gives us an aggregate view of all the data that's been labeled. The third step in the AI Studio is then, of course, to go ahead and build the model. Here we offer templates which encapsulate the coding, vectorization, and the algorithm. So the only thing required of the user is just to select a few parameters and you're good to go. So let me select the fast text classifier here. Let's give it a new CEO label to show. Let's give it a name, and so I will call it fast text here, so that when I go back and iterate through my models to find the best fit, I know exactly which model and which template I've used. So here we can see a view of all the models. As you can see, I've prepared some models prior to this demo. And we can then go on to the validation view. And the Squirro AI Studio provides all the functionality to validate all of your models. So let's pick one here which looks like a good fit. I'll choose to validate it. And you can see the beauty of a no-code AI platform like this. It's easy to verify your results, then either click back through to iterate and rework your models until you're satisfied with the quality. And that's what I did here. In the final step, we can then go on and publish our model so that it's ready to use on live, unseen data. Now that we've published our model, we now go back to the Squirro platform to implement the model into our pipeline workflow, and then afterwards we can see the results. And so here we go into our no-code drag and drop pipeline workflow editor and drop the newly created machine learning model into our workflow. So I'll just find it here and I'll just drag it, drop it. I will run the enrichment on our data, and that's it. So let's see how it's performed on our data. Let's filter for the management change machine learning model, and we can see it's worked. Here we have a sentence indicating a management change, and we can continue going through our data and we can see sentences clearly indicating a management change. So that was a quick run through of Squirro AI Studio. You can learn more about Squirro AI Studio on squirro.com, or you can go to learn.squirro.com, which is where our highly intuitive training courses, which you can follow along and use on our ready-to-use free trials at start.squirro.com.
Great. So we've actually seen it in working order in practice. It is as wonderful as you described. I have a little slide as well, just to remind you of the experience that we've undergone and to highlight the beauty that is the Squirro AI Studio. We've got a visual representation down here of the 5 steps, the candidate sets, the ground truth, the models, the validation, the publish. I mean, everything that you're now somewhat semi-familiar with. And I think that it's probably come to the point in your own journey in this participation in the panel where you're ready and excited and you want to maybe go and try it out yourself. And I'd certainly highly recommend that you do try it out yourself. So this really must be the place to be. At the start of the discussion and throughout, we've forefronted in our discussion and dialogue the experimentation opportunities that come with no-code AI. And the branch that it really does offer, as we've mentioned a couple of times and tried to emphasize, that helps bridge worlds and skill sets, business and tech, tech to business. And it's something that we can all relate with and maybe have experienced certain struggles where we want to understand a little bit more. And we understand why it's important to understand. And it's maybe like you quoted earlier, Isaac Newton, I'd now like to, as an educator, maybe think back to one of my favorite educators, and that's Benjamin Bloom. And he quite rightly outlines, I feel, that in one of his most famous educational taxonomies, he emphasizes that we cannot create and we cannot change. You cannot innovate because innovation is strongly linked to change without knowing and understanding first. So take the opportunity to get to know, to understand a little bit more with the opportunity that no code is providing. And I'd encourage you all to start here. It's the place to be. And I mean that with us at the Squirro Academy, we've got courses dedicated, academically developed courses dedicated to the use of the AI Studio, where you can build your own machine learning models. And really learn to understand the steps involved in text classification. I'd like to thank you for your participation and for sticking with us today throughout the discussion. I really enjoyed it and I hope that you did too. I'd like to thank you, Amin. It really was a pleasure having this discussion with you today, and I look forward to welcoming you all on the Academy soon. Amin, do you want to also share your final parting words with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to sort of reflect on what you said. It's actually an honor and real privilege to talk about things I'm really passionate about, and in particular this subject in particular in our own AI studio. These things are really get me going. So I'm sure you can tell. So thank you all, and I'll leave it there.